Perhaps. Not certain yet, but is that you there in the attendees?
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, we're ready to go, Mayor.
Thank you. Well, welcome to the regular Half Moon Bay City Council meeting of September 20th, 2022. This meeting will be held entirely by teleconference. All council members and staff will only participate via the Zoom platform using the process that I'm going to describe now. The meeting is being conducted pursuant to recent amendments to the teleconference rules required by the Ralph M. Brown Act, allowing teleconferencing during a proclaimed state of emergency, but local officials have recommended social distancing. This legislation is AB 361. The meeting will be conducted via Zoom webinar, and live Spanish interpretation will be available within the Zoom platform. Members of the public are welcome to log into the webinar as attendees. During any question and answer portions, attendees may use the raise your hand feature and will be called upon and unmuted when it is their turn to speak. This meeting is also being streamed live on Channel 27, on Pacific Coast TV, and on Facebook at facebook.com/City of Half Moon Bay. You can also join by phone at 669-900-9128 using webinar ID 955-3561-4263. If joining by phone, use *9 to raise your hand, *6 to mute and unmute. And now, Victor Hernandez will provide instructions in Spanish.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, honorable council members, Mr. Chittister, Ms. Enberg, city staff, and all members of the public. Victor Hernandez, Spanish interpreter. Muy buenas noches a todos ustedes. Le queremos dejar saber que esta reunión se celebrará totalmente por teleconferencia. Todos los miembros del consejo y el personal solo participarán a través de la plataforma Zoom, utilizando el proceso descrito a continuación. La reunión se lleva a cabo de conformidad con las recientes enmiendas a las reglas de teleconferencia requeridas por la ley Ralph M. Brown, que permite teleconferencia durante un estado proclamado de emergencia. Cuando los funcionarios locales han recomendado el distanciamiento social, es decir, la AB 361. El propósito de AB 361 es de proporcionar el ambiente más seguro para tanto el público, los funcionarios electos y el personal, al tiempo que se permita la operación continua del gobierno y la participación pública durante la pandemia de COVID-19. Y también les queremos dejar saber que esta reunión será traducida en el español, y para poder acceder al canal de audio usted tendrá que hacer clic en el botón de interpretación, que será un icono de un mundo que aparecerá al fondo de su pantalla en la barra de tareas de esta plataforma Zoom. Después de eso aparecerá un menú y entonces ustedes podrán seleccionar el idioma. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Gracias, Victor. A Spanish interpretation will also be provided this evening by Nicholas Leskovich. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Rarback?
Here.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Here.
Councilmember Jimenez?
Here.
Vice Mayor Penrose?
Here.
Mayor Reddick?
Here.
You have a quorum?
Okay, we're moving on to public forum. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that are on the consent agenda or items that are not on the regular business agenda. Do we have any hands raised at this time, Jessica?
We do, Mayor. Thank you. Our first speaker is Julia Raposa.
Hi, I have two topics I want to comment on. One is on the agenda and one is not. So I wanted to clarify if I had time for both or just one.
The non-agenda item at this moment, please.
Okay. Okay, according to Matthew Chichester, pardon me if I mispronounced the name, the city looked into the purchase of synthetic turf and the documents that I have reviewed. The costs do not enumerate the lifespan nor the cost of disposing of synthetic grass. The city proposes the development of Smithfield at the same time it proposes the Hyatt.
Excuse me, Julia, this item is on the agenda this evening.
Oh, so this is for the stuff that's not on the agenda?
Yes, public forum is for the items that are not on the regular agenda.
Okay, in that case, I'll comment on that. In 1989, when Half Moon Bay wells on the field of the future Rancho San Benito were blocked by the Loma Prieta earthquake, Louis Leakey, paleontologist in Kenya, ordered the burning of ivory. It was controversial at first. Some thought that the ivory could, if sold, could bring so much money into conservation, but it would drive the market for ivory and lead to more deaths of elephants. A hotel or any business that relies on underpaid, low-wage workers who can't afford local housing is exploiting its workers. The revenues of the city of Half Moon Bay that would get from another hotel are akin to what conservationists would get from selling ivory. It would be a huge human cost to the people that they wish to protect. As of 2016, 263 tons of ivory have been burned to protect the elephants. And sadly, there are poachers we will need to burn more. The city needs to turn away from projects that don't compensate workers with adequate wages to afford housing. Workers deserve the dignity of property ownership. Renters never have the liberty to paint a wall lavender, yellow, burgundy, such a small thing, but so important. Land trusts are creating the opportunity for low-wage workers to create generational wealth while preserving affordable housing in communities plagued by increasing wealth gaps. Stop calling our workers essential workers. It is a euphemism for exploited workers. Restore their dignity and the opportunity for social mobility by the acquisition of property and generational wealth. Low-income housing developed by the city, county, and state should be in a land trust model, as is housing for employees of nearby Stanford University. In a land trust model, a nonprofit holds ownership of the land and leases it for a period of time to a family that meets its income parameters. Removing the value of the land creates affordable options, and the trust guarantees that future residents, when the property is sold, must also be within certain income demographic. To create worker housing without the possibility of ownership is akin to creating servants' quarters. It is a perpetuation of a neo-feudalistic tradition of exploitation and a denial of the right to own property guaranteed by the Constitution in the 5th and 14th Amendments. That's all I have on that topic.
Thank you, Julia. Next, we have Usuario de Zoom.
Usuario de Zoom, adelante, por favor.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good evening, everyone.
Mi nombre es Rocío Ávila y soy miembro del Comité de Viviendas Justas.
My name is Rocio Avila, and I am a member of Just Housing.
Mi pregunta es hacia la ciudad. ¿Cuál es el progreso que hay para hacer viviendas en Stone Pine? Queremos saber qué progreso hay o qué han hablado, si han tocado este tema.
So my question is towards the city. What kind of progress, if any, has been made for like housing at Stone Pine? Have there been any talks? Has there been any progress?
Necesitamos que hagan lo posible. Ese es un lugar que está muy bien, que no tendría ningún problema con el tráfico, que han estado hablando mucho de tráfico y cosas así. Necesitamos un lugar cerca de aquí y esta propiedad sería un lugar muy bueno para construir viviendas.
So you need to do everything you can possibly do. I think this is a good place. There's absolutely no problems, like with the traffic. Everybody's been talking about traffic issues, but we need a place that's close by, and I think this would be a good place to construct.
Esperamos que haya una junta especial para viviendas y saber cuál es el progreso que está haciendo la ciudad para ayudarnos.
Gracias, señor.
Gracias.
So we're waiting to see if there's some kind of special meeting for this housing, and we'll be in tune.
Gracias a todos.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Lucio. That concludes public comment, Mayor.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, members of the public. So we're moving on to proclamations and presentations, and tonight we have our Mid-Coast Community Council report. Greg, are you here for that?
I certainly am. I don't know if you can see me. So the Mid-Coast Community Council is doing normal stuff that I'm sure you've dealt with, like working with County DPW on unsigned traffic intersections near a grammar school in Montera and unsafe traffic encroachments on sidewalks in El Granado. But on a more major point, we have a affordable housing application at Cypress Point that we're going to be reviewing. There's significant concern in the community about traffic, pollution, and sustainability. We also joined Half Moon Bay in significant comments on the Caltrans multi-asset roadway project. I think we put out a 10-page letter, and part of our concern is the bottleneck at Surfers Beach, where there's a lot of different interests going on. Of course, Harvey's heard all this. We have one opening on the council for an appointment in the coming year because we didn't have enough people running. So we'll be looking for people who live in our area to step up and join the council. And upcoming, we have a continuation of the wildfire concerns. Immediately, there will be a master plan produced by Parks Department regarding Quarry Park. We'll be reviewing that master plan. We've been working with RCD and Parks, inspecting the wildfire fuel reduction efforts they've been making in Quarry Park. And I think this is possibly still of concern to Half Moon Bay because of the risk to the city from a wind-driven canopy fire in eucalyptus. So I think you might find you share our concerns about reducing those fire stands. We are also trying to get some community groups, neighborhood groups, to form fire-wise community groups. These things are going to be eligible for funding and lower insurance costs for the homeowners. There are going to be some requirements for home hardening to, creating defensible space. I think this is a topic you'll hear more about. And if people want to reach out to me, I can put you in touch with the Firewise people if Half Moon Bay isn't already doing this. I think that's enough. Any questions?
Thank you for the helpful report. Joaquin.
Yeah, thank you. Greg, I do have a question. You just mentioned there's going to be some appointing for the position of the Mid-Coast Council. Is there like a outreach that is done? How is that brought to the community of the Mid-Coast?
That's a great point. We will be doing outreach. We already have posted things about it on the website and discussed it in meetings. But if you have suggestions, Joaquin, I'm all ears because I'm likely to be chair next year and I could use the help.
By when do you need to know about the people that are interested, that could be interested for this position?
My understanding is we can't appoint them until the beginning of the calendar year.
Okay. So if there's any question, who can they contact? They need to reach out to
you could contact any council member, but certainly start with me. And I would like to get these people involved sooner. We already have one person who's going to be elected by default, and he's already working with us. The more people we get involved sooner, the better it will be for getting everybody working together.
The area, can you let me know? Can you kind of describe me like one of the areas where the people can actually be residents of, so they can south
of Half Moon, unincorporated areas, south of Pacifica, north of Half Moon Bay.
Okay. Perfect. I think there might be a few people who might be interested. I will bring it up to them, then they can reach out to you.
Con mucho gusto.
Muchas gracias, Greg.
Okay, wonderful. And now we have the Mosquito District Annual Report.
Good evening. My name is Katie Martin, and I'm your representative to the San Mateo Mosquito and Vector Control Special District. With me tonight is Rachel Curtis Robles, who serves as the district's public health education and outreach officer. She has the longest name in the entire world, I think. Rachel is going to speak in a moment about our local yellow jacket population, which has exploded this year. I know several of you, but would like to introduce myself to Mr. Brownstone and Mr. Jimenez, who have been elected since the last time I saw you all. I've been your representative to the Mosquito District for 10 years. The last 2.5 years, I've served as the board president, having won a second term without having to use a single lawn sign. This is a little joke. Prior to this position, I was the district secretary for 5 years. I also serve on the LAFCO board as one of the 2 commissioners for special districts in this county. Harvey sits on that board as well, but he represents the city, of course. I proudly live in Kenyatta Cove, from which I will never move. Since my last report to you about a year ago, as most public agencies, we've been meeting through Zoom with almost 100% participation from our 21 trustees. Amazing in and of itself. That's right, 26 meetings on Zoom. Nothing seems to get people to a meeting like a worldwide pandemic, I guess. We are beginning to consider in-person meetings of some variety in the near future, probably after the first of the year. All the cities in the county are currently represented on the district's board, which is also an amazing thing. On the district's financial side, I'm proud to announce that the district has now fully funded our retirement obligation to our employees. It has become a special project for the board to provide for the future of our very valuable employees. As anticipated, we once again won the District of Distinction Award and the Transparency Designation from the California Special Districts Association. That's 6 years in a row now. We're very proud of that. Also, for the last 3 years in a row, we have received an excellence designation for our accounting practices. This award is particularly important to the district because of our past, our financial past. Last time I was here, I mentioned that we have a new general manager, Brian Weber. I'm happy to report that Brian is performing well above our expectations and has modernized a number of outdated procedures and operations, making us much more efficient. He is very dedicated to his employees and the welfare of the county's residents. We are very lucky to have him. I also mentioned that we have purchased a new property almost contiguous to our offices in Burlingame. Some of you may remember it from a couple of decades ago as an ice skating rink just off Rollins Avenue. Maybe not. Maybe you guys aren't a little met yet. It perfectly fits our needs for the district. We have this airboat that needs to have a place to be every night. That is to say, it takes up a lot of commercial space. So this was perfect. We are about the business of remodeling the space to maximize its value to the citizens of San Mateo County. If you would like, I can drop off the annual report at City Hall for your reading pleasure. So really, Rachel actually has the more interesting part of this presentation. So if there are no questions, I will turn it over to her.
Thank you, Katie, for the excellent report. Glad things are going so well.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Rachel.
Thank you. We really appreciate Trustee Martin's leadership, especially on all those Zoom calls she mentioned. She does a very good job keeping everything moving along efficiently. So I am Rachel. I am our district outreach person in PR, and I have a few slides here. I apologize for how they look, but we are a public health agency. We're an independent special district funded by your taxes, so thank you for your taxes. So any services I mentioned today are no charge to residents. If you own, if you rent, if you live in San Mateo County, whoever you are, we are happy to provide these services, and we do so all throughout the county. And we have a technician dedicated to our coastal zone. So he's out there in Half Moon Bay and along the coast almost every weekday. He's happy to stop by and help. And we're happy to help with any mosquito or vector related issues. We do a variety of services, mostly related to mosquito control, but also we can help make sure that rodents, rats, and mice are not getting into your living spaces and your homes. We can ID insects and ticks. We do disease surveillance and testing for vectors across the county. I'm happy to come to your groups, any neighborhood groups or organizations that would like a presentation about tick safety, especially along the coast, or rodent proofing in your neighborhood. We're happy to do that. But today, Trustee Martin asked me to specifically talk about our yellow jacket control program. So you're probably familiar with little yellow stripy stingy things of various sorts. Honeybees, we love honeybees. If you have a honeybee issue, we will encourage you to reach out to the San Mateo County Beekeepers Guild, and we have their contact information in case you call us as a first call. We don't generally control wasps because for the most part they are non-aggressive, although if there's a wasp nest hanging near the entry of a door or in a daycare, we will come take care of that for you. But I want to talk about these little guys on the bottom, which are yellow jackets, and they're very aggressive. They're the ones that bother you during a picnic or a barbecue. They come for the sugar in your drinks and the protein that you're grilling that smells so delicious. And we do yellow jacket control because their stings can cause, and their bites too, can cause a really severe reaction in some individuals, even anaphylactic shock. So we really want to protect the public from these very, very aggressive little yellow stripy stingers. And so this is some of them guarding the entrance of their nest. This particular kind of yellow jacket does not nest in sort of a hive that you might see in a tree or on the side of a building. Instead, that little entrance is in the ground, and underneath the ground, there's a nest that they've built that could have thousands of little yellow jackets in it, just ready to come out anytime their nest is disturbed or when they think that you're grilling something particularly tasty smelling, and they're ready to defend their nest quite aggressively. So you're probably familiar with these sort of traps on the left. Many of us use them in the summer. And these can be useful if you don't know where the nest is, but you want to have some yellow jacket control on your property. So we tend to suggest to people to put them around the perimeter of your property. Don't put them right where you're eating, because that will attract them all the time and attract them extra besides just to your food. So putting them around the perimeter of the property, whether that's your home, whether that's a school in the community, but putting them around the perimeter. If you do know where the nest is, and you can get an eye for it certain times of day, especially when it's very warm out, they will be buzzing almost as if they're landing at an airport, in and out of their little hole in the ground. If you have an idea where the hole is, you can give us a call or fill out the form online, and we will send one of our technicians out. We come in a big bee-proof, wasp-proof, yellow jacket-proof suit, all sealed up, and we have a little puffer with some dust that we put right into the hole, so that only the things in the hole are going to die from that dust, and they take it back. It takes a few days for them to all die, but eventually that nest will die from that dust. This is much preferred to the method I commonly hear from the public, which usually involves somebody's husband getting something from the hardware store, running out in the middle of the night, spraying and trying not to get stung while they're running away and trying not to get stung. So please call us. We have the right tools. We have the right pesticide to use exactly for that. And because our treatment is so focal, we're not affecting other organisms in the area. You can call us anytime. We're happy to come out to help anyone. As Trustee Martin mentioned, we're located in Burlingame, but we are on the coast almost every weekday. So I'm happy to answer questions, or you can call anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Questions for Rachel or Katie? I don't see any, but I can say that I'm guessing we're all very happy that you're, in the vicinity and doing the work that you do. I was actually outside with a flashlight the other night, and I couldn't believe the density of flying things in the air. It's really amazing what comes out after dark.
Most of the flying things are wonderful and great for our environment, but if you ever notice mosquitoes, please call us and we'll come and figure that out and how to stop them.
Yeah, there were no mosquitoes. These are all like beneficial insects. So that was beautiful. But yeah, I've noticed the yellow jackets are big already this season. They were big earlier in the year than they normally are too. Vice Mayor Penrose.
Yes, I just wanted to say that it would be good for us to have this notice with the telephone number up on our website, maybe in our newsletter.
I think that's a great idea.
That would be great. And I think Half Moon Bay is one of the cities that I'm in contact with your PIO. To every so often I put something and they put it in your newsletter, but I'll try to make sure I do it a little more frequently, especially certain times of the year.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Very helpful report. Thanks for coming out tonight.
No problem. Good to see you.
Anybody else have a question? Okay, I don't see any, but thanks again.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Bye. Thanks, Rachel.
Bye. Okay, so the next item is mayor's announcements of community activities. I was going to announce Summer's End, but I think staff actually has a report out on that, so I'll pass on that. And then, Catherine, do we have a report out from recent closed sessions?
The council has not met in closed session since our last regular meeting, so nothing to report out.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, so we're moving on to city manager updates to council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a couple of announcements. The first two will be presented by our Recreation Supervisor, Eddie Bealey.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, Matthew, can you see that?
Looks great, Eddie. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, we're good at the beginning. All right, folks, we have two CMO updates for you tonight. Our first CMO update pertains to the Summer's End Music Festival. This free event is taking place this Saturday, September 24th from noon until 7 p.m. This is our third year hosting this event. Folks that have attended in the past know we usually have this event at John Carter Park, but due to the construction this year, we are going to bring the event downtown, where we will be closing off the 500 block of Main Street. That's where we will have our main performance stage and our event seating. We'll also have several local nonprofits in attendance, tabling and conducting some outreach, as well as some fun activities, free activities for folks. Now, those that have come to the event in the past know that we usually have a very large youth-based, family-based element to the event. And so this year, in addition to this closure of Main Street, we'll also be closing this portion of Kelly Avenue between Prisma and Main Street to hold our Summer's End Music Festival Kids Zone, where we were bringing in even more activities and more attractions for kids and families and for everybody. Most of those being run by both the Boys and Girls Club of the Coast Side and the Half Moon Bay Library staff, which we're really fortunate to have as partners in this event. This is a music geared event. So we, in being such close proximity to the Mac Dutra Plaza performance stage, we'll have a secondary performing stage this year for kids and their families. So everyone that comes down will have the opportunity to see some live music. So we're really excited about that. We want to invite all the community to come down and participate and enjoy the end of the summer with us and the beautiful afternoon that we hope is coming. That's my first update. My second update is pertaining to Frenchman's Creek. At our upcoming monthly Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, which takes place next Wednesday, September 28th at 6 p.m., one of our agenda items is a community workshop to discuss the phase 2 improvements to the Frenchman's Creek Park Plan. And we just want to notify the community that this meeting is taking place next week and invite and encourage them to participate in that discussion and provide us that input and their ideas into what changes and improvements they would like to see at Frenchman's Creek. Again, that's going to be a remote meeting, so anyone that's interested in attending, you can find the link for that meeting in the Parks and Recreation Commission agenda located on the city's agendas webpage. That's all the updates I have. Are there any questions?
You're doing good works. Exciting
Thank you,
stuff.
Mayor Ruddick. And Mayor Ruddick, we'll see you at the event too, and we're hoping that you can help introduce a couple of bands.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, I'll be in touch offline.
All right, great.
Thank you, everyone.
Do we have any other updates this evening?
We have a couple more updates. Thank you very much, Eddie. One is just a quick notice to the community and something that I will call hot off the press, as I just got an email 5 minutes ago. CAL FIRE is going to be doing a prescribed burn down in the northern end of Santa Cruz County, close to the San Mateo County border on Lower Empire Grade Road on Thursday of this week. So just wanted our residents to be aware of that. You will smell smoke probably, depending on which way the wind is blowing, and that could continue for a couple of days. Obviously, if you are concerned about a fire, please contact our fire protection district, but be aware that there will be some smoke later this week. The other item I wanted to share is an introduction of our new sheriff's captain, and there she is on the screen. I'm very excited to introduce Captain Rebecca Albin. She's been with the Sheriff's Office, I believe, about 10 years, and was recently assigned to the Coast Side Bureau as our previous captain, Andrew Armando, retired from service with the Sheriff's Office. And with that, I'd like to allow Captain Albin a few minutes to introduce herself and for council members to ask her any questions.
Hi, everybody. It is certainly very nice to see all of you, meet all of you virtually. I look forward to meeting you in person. Thank goodness COVID allows that to happen now, because I'm a big handshake, loud talker, and it's much easier in person than it is on Zoom. That said, that's correct. I've been with the Sheriff's Office just over 10 years. I came over as the contract acquisition with the Millbrae Police Department. I had been there about 8 years at the time that we were taking over, so about 18 years total. While I am learning every day about how wonderful Half Moon Bay is, I have spent my entire life living in this county. I grew up in Millbrae, and I went to Burlingame High School. And again, while I've not spent a whole lot of time in Half Moon Bay, I did grow up in Millbrae and work for the Millbrae Police Department for about 8 years. So I think I do have some semblance of an idea of what a tight-knit community is like, and the expectations that you may have of me and of my deputies. So that said, I have been here just a couple of weeks. I am enjoying all your wonderful restaurants, and every day I try and walk a different neighborhood and learn new streets and see new things. I made sure that my background is actually Half Moon Bay. It is not just a random ocean. So I did try and be factually accurate and sensitive with my background. So again, it is very nice to meet all of you. I very much look forward to meeting you in person. I plan to be accessible to everybody, and I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. So I'm really looking forward to building some lasting relationships with you all, and hopefully we can all work together moving forward, and should be good for all of us.
Welcome, and thank you for the introduction. We appreciate that. We appreciate the personal touch. I see that the Vice Mayor has her hand raised. Deborah?
Hello, very nice to meet you, Captain. I am looking forward to having coffee with you sometime, or lunch. I live downtown, and it'd be fun to get together one-on-one. My concern is with our Latinx population. And I'm wondering if you speak Spanish, and if you do or do not, how many of your deputies that work here in Half Moon Bay speak Spanish?
I unfortunately do not speak Spanish. I speak enough Spanish that when I was on patrol, I could kind of communicate and work my way through a call, but I would never claim to be fluent beyond that. I can get back to you. I don't have that exact statistic. Again, I've only been on the coast just a couple of weeks, but I am well aware just from the time that I have been here that we do have at least a handful that do speak Spanish, female and male. And again, I can get back to you. I can probably send an email, honestly, maybe 10 minutes after I get off this meeting, because I wouldn't want to guess and give you incorrect facts, but I do know that we do have a handful.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions or comments for Captain Albin? I don't see any. I will just say ditto to what the Vice Mayor said. I would enjoy getting together for a cup of coffee and getting to know each other. I just want to say that, you know, one of the things that's going to be really important for me, and I believe for the entire community, is going to be transparency. So, you know, being transparent and honest in communications about things that are going on in the community, you know, whether it's, you know, crime or situations or, you know, trends that we need to know about. The community, you know, wants to know. We don't want to live in a state of anxiety because a lot of people, you know, track things and know about stuff and share rumors on Nextdoor, and things can get out of hand. So it's better to just, you know, have an honest, transparent relationship about what's going on, and then, you know, having conversations about it. So that's where I'm coming from.
You are preaching to the choir. I didn't get into my bio, but I can share that with you all one-on-one when we meet in person. I was our public information officer, actually our first sworn public information officer for several years. And transparency was number one. It was always what I was pushing, because you're exactly correct. We have to get the information out first so that people aren't hearing misinformation because of, you know, their neighbors, friends, cousins saw something. Again, we're on the same page on that so much as I can, because obviously active investigations, you know, I would never want to release anything that would, you know, hurt an investigation. But generally speaking, there's always something that we can share. And please know that, again, we're on the same page on that.
Yeah, even if you just put out an announcement that says, you know, we acknowledge that an incident occurred, we're investigating it, we want you to know there's no risk to the community, but we can't, you know, give you the details right now. But yes, many of you knew of an incident, you know, at a certain place. So it's better to at least, you know, some information, even if it's, you know, sensitive information, letting people know it's being worked on, that a time will come when we'll know more, rather than
Sounds
just
very reasonable.
Simmer. Yeah. Joaquin.
Sounds good.
Captain Alvin, welcome to Half Moon Bay.
Thank you.
One of the things that you said, you know, got my attention. The last 2 weeks, you have been walking around our community, different neighborhoods, you know, and that makes me think that you were very interested in community engagement, you know, and I'm very big in community engagement. I do walk our streets as well, pretty much every day, mornings and evenings, just to see how our community is doing. So, you know, I want to thank you for taking that initiative, you know, of learning about different neighborhoods in the community of Half Moon Bay. And looking forward to meeting with you and working with you.
Absolutely. And you know what, Joaquin, if I could join you on one of those walks, I would be happy to. I have 2 young children, so I have some baby weight to lose. And I would be very happy to walk with you anytime.
Oh, that'd be great. Actually, when Captain Lopez was here, we started doing that. Community engagement, you know, worked with Captain Lopez around, you know, downtown area, invited him to different locations in Half Moon Bay to walk. And I actually made myself, you know, available for some of your deputies, you know, to do the same thing. You know, like I said, I'm very big on community engagement, and I like to see, you know, all deputies, you know, the sheriffs, you know, in our neighborhoods, you know, not just patrolling, but actually walking, you know, the neighborhoods. And I will happily make an invitation to work around our, you know, our community.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Again, you know, we're happy you're here. Look forward to making a connection with you, and you know, good luck in your new endeavor. Best wishes.
Thank you so much. Everybody I've met so far has been fantastic.
Great. Okay,
Mayor Reddick, we do have one hand raised. I don't know if you want to check if it's related to this
sure,
item.
let's do it.
Okay. Dan Haggerty, did you want to comment on this item?
Yes, I just, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Yeah, thank you, Rebecca, for, all of your good work and your report tonight. I've had a concern for a number of years, and that is with automobiles, vehicles that have the dark tinted windows on the passenger and the driver's side. And the concern that I have, first of all, it's my understanding that that's illegal. I know that there's some kind of some fine lines there, but in general, it's not legal to have your passenger and driver's side windows tinted to the degree that you can't even recognize if there's a person in the. You can't see the face. You can't see the eye contact. Is this correct? Is this what you understand?
Yeah, I mean, you gave a very good description of it. That's what you described is accurate.
And I mean, we're in a whole new world today here, 2020, and this has not been really well. There's been more and more of this. People, I don't know if it's an economic thing that some parts of California are kind of overlooking. But the real danger is not being able to have eye contact and make, visual contact, make certain that the driver sees you, when you're crossing the road or whether you're making a turn or whatever. So, I think it's a very important issue to be talked about within the community. I know that it's kind of been accepted to some degree. I've even seen commercial vehicles driving around with tinted windows. So my question to you is, are you sensitive to this issue? Do you above and beyond it being illegal, do you recognize that it's not a safe situation to have a car or a truck or any vehicle with tinted windows to where the pedestrian or a driver cannot communicate visually to the operator of the vehicle?
Yes. Again, I agree with everything you're saying. From an officer safety standpoint, it's always unnerving when people have very dark tinted windows because, like you said, you can't tell what may be waiting inside for you. And that's never a good feeling when you're on patrol. So I can definitely speak to that. That having been said, it is an infraction. So, in terms of the grand scheme of things, people aren't going to prison for having tinted windows. And unfortunately, a lot of people just like the way they look. So it is certainly illegal. But it's a black and white, very clear cut issue. It is illegal. It is an infraction. People can be pulled over for it. They would be issued a fix-it ticket, basically, in that, when they took the tint off the windows, they would get it signed off. There'd be an administrative fee, and that would be it. Or if they so choose to leave it on, they'd have to pay a larger fee. But again, I don't want to downplay what you're saying because I do agree. It is illegal technically, and it is unnerving and it is unsafe for the reasons that you outlined. We just discussed transparency, so I'm not going to just tell you what you want to hear and say that we're going to pull over every single person with tinted windows because, to be honest, there are sometimes things that are more dangerous that we need to be dealing with. I'm certainly not going to have my deputies not responding to in-progress calls because they're pulling over tinted window violations. That having been said, it is certainly something that we do keep an eye out for. And when we are able, it is something that we issue citations for. Again, I told you, at my beginning of my time with the Sheriff's Office, I spent as our public information officer. In my last position, I was captain in our services bureau. So I actually oversaw not only our public information program, but our social media program. And I still am very closely linked with that. So I see no reason why I can't reach out to them and say, hey, let's put out some public information, on social media to share with people, the dangers, not just that it is an infraction, that it is in fact illegal, but share with them some of the things that you mentioned so that maybe those people that do care will think twice before doing it. And you know what? There may be some people that just don't know that it's legal, and maybe it will stop them from doing it. So I think information is power, and I'm certainly, more than willing to try and get some messaging out, regarding that to see if that helps. And then again, we'll continue doing what we're doing, which is, when we're able, we will cite people for that. Again, when we can.
Well, I thank you for your proactiveness and taking it to another level. It was it's a good idea that you just suggested. And well, thank you. I look forward to meeting you someday and having further conversations on this. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Captain. And have a good evening.
You as well.
Okay, so now we're moving on to the consent calendar. Would somebody like to make a motion? Or if somebody wants to pull something, now's the time to call that. So nobody wants to pull. Does anybody want to make a motion?
Yeah, happy. I move that we adopt the consent calendar. I'm sorry, I move that we adopt the following items. Number 1, consent calendar. 1A, waiver reading of resolutions and ordinances. 1B, warrants for the month of August 2022. Item 1C, re-ratification of resolution to continue holding public meetings remotely. Item 1D, display of the LGBTQ progress flag for the month of October at City Hall to commemorate LGBTQ History Month. Item 1E, receipt of legislative position letters. And item 1F, Frenchman's Creek Park Phase 2 project.
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone,
Yes.
Councilmember Rarbeck,
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Penrose,
Yes.
Mayor Reddick.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we're moving on to resolutions and staff reports. Item 3A is First Amendment to Agreement with El Centro de Libertad for the CARES Community Responder Program.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be taking this item tonight, and I'll be joined by Jeff Essex from El Centro de Libertad, our partner in this program, and grateful for their partnership and him joining us tonight. This presentation will be in 2 parts. I'll give a little bit of background on the program, and then Jeff will give an update on how things are going, and then I'll wrap things up with a recommendation to amend their contract to reflect our plans for the remainder of this fiscal year. As you all know, the CARES program, which stands for Crisis Assistance Response and Evaluation Services, was launched on March 16th of this year. And it was launched in response, as you all know, to a couple of tragedies, law enforcement related shootings here on the coast side, and a desire to find different ways to respond to the mental health crisis we're dealing with as a society, but specifically in our community, and finding better ways of responding to individual crises other than armed law enforcement or other first responders. And we explored a lot of different options over the last year and ultimately landed on a model that is similar to Cahoots, which has been operating for 30 years up in Eugene, Oregon, has been very, very successful and has become the model for many of these programs that are starting across the country. I think with that, I will turn the time over to Jeff, who can talk about the work that CARES is doing and El Centro serving in that role, and updates on the program in its first 6 months of operation. Jeff.
Thanks, Matthew. Do you want me to share my PowerPoint or? Oh, there we go. All right. Mayor Ruddock, council members, city leadership, everybody, hello again. It's me. And I want to talk a little bit about the success that we've had with the CARES program. The stats that you're seeing up on the screen right now take us from the beginning of our launch in March 16th through July 31st of 2022. We've had 57 calls for service. 4 of those have needed to be transported. 35 stabilizations. What I mean by that with stabilizations, of the 57 calls, 35 times we've interacted, we've engaged, we de-escalate, we stabilize the scene. So of those 57 calls, 35 folks did not need to go to the county jail. 35 did not need to go to psychiatric emergency or any other hospitalization. They were stabilized in the community, and efforts were made or are being made to connect them to long-term treatment and care. We've had a total of 52 follow-up actions out of those 57 calls, and our average response time has been 7 minutes. And that includes, since we've expanded our operating area that I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. But 7 minutes from the time we get the call to the time that we arrive on the scene and we start working with the folks in the community. Now, going back up to that top stat, that's 57 calls as of July 30th, 2022. I have not yet produced the August CARES report. That'll be coming out this week, but I can tell you a quick look in our database. Since the beginning of August, we've added 38 calls for service to that 57. So as of today, we've gone to 95 calls for service. It is getting busy. Matthew, if you want to click over to the next slide. Some of the updates we've done is we've got now 2 fully staffed CARES teams. Each team has 2 folks on board. 1 or both are bilingual, 1 or both are EMT certified. They are operating 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 6:30 at night. And it's funny, when we first launched the CARES program, we had projected the operating hours to be much later in the evening and start later in the day. But I've said it before and I'll say it again, you folks in Half Moon Bay, go to sleep early. We are not getting any action at all after 6:30 at night, except for this week. We've had a couple of calls that have come in right at 6:30. And but we were missing calls earlier in the day. So we thought with school back in session, to capture some more of those calls, we needed to shift our hours down. Our 2 teams are on 10-hour shifts. So they work 4-10 schedule, and they're working from 8 to 6:30, 7 days a week, 10 hours each day. Next bullet point. 988, we have collaborated with Star Vista, who is the community-based organization operating the 988 call center for the San Mateo County area. And we are now going to be receiving calls directly from the 988 call center. So when folks are hearing about 988 and they're nervous about calling 911, they can call 988. They get a civilian clinician on the phone. That clinician is screening the calls the same way that we want public safety to screen them, and that is making sure that there's no medical emergency, nobody is unresponsive. We really need paramedics out there, that there is no crime happening, there isn't domestic violence in play, there isn't child endangerment in play, and that there's no weapons involved. All of those calls, all of those 3 elements would exclude the CARES unit from being the primary response to that call. We can, however, be a support mechanism for the Sheriff's Department if they choose to have us there. With the 988 calls coming directly from us or from them to us, we report those calls to public safety communication, telling dispatch that we have a 988 call, we're responding, and we'll let them know if we need any assistance when we arrive. But we feel confident that the calls are being appropriately screened. Next one. We are responding to the schools. Just this week, we had a couple visits to schools where they had some students that were in emotional crisis, and we were able to respond there and be of assistance and help de-escalate that situation. And it is always preferable to have civilians respond on campus as opposed to law enforcement. And so we are having success in that regard. Next one. We have an expanded operating area now. The City Council graciously allowed the CARES program to expand outside of the city limits. So we're now covering everywhere from the Tom Lantos tunnels down to the South Half Moon Bay city limits, including the Moon Ridge community. And we've actually responded to a couple of calls outside of that operating area when we've been requested by the Sheriff's Department to come out. There was a call in La Honda we went to a few weeks back. So the expanded operating area, the expanded hours, the additional staff members is creating much more activity, and we're capturing more of the activity that happens in the community, where we can take an armed response out of the equation and put CARES in its place or respond with the Sheriff's Department. Next bullet point. Myself and Matthew went out to CIT International in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania back in August. CIT stands for Crisis Intervention Teams. And that organization, it really is the guiding compass for training law enforcement and probation on crisis de-escalation and working with folks that are suffering a mental health crisis and how to do it in a different type of way. The CARES program was well received. People were blown away with the success that we've had. They got a nice look at the community of Half Moon Bay and the entire mid-coast of San Mateo County. And they were absolutely amazed that we were able to get this project up and off the ground. They were most amazed at the price tag associated with running this type of a CARES program. There was a representative from the city of Berkeley who was stunned because they recently spent about $2 million just on feasibility studies alone to try and get something like this off the ground. So the biggest attention that we're getting following CIT International, there's been a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails, are from smaller communities looking to duplicate our efforts here. So we're a model. We're a model in the state of California. We're a model across the nation on how to get a more humane approach to mental health crisis going on when you have kind of a limited budget. Next bullet. Did I put that in there or did you put that in there, Matthew?
I didn't touch it. I'm happy to talk about that.
Okay, you go ahead.
It dovetails into what you were just sharing. We were lucky enough to receive a grant from Kaiser Permanente Foundation to fund an independent program evaluation. Anytime you pilot something new, this model's been tested elsewhere, but it's new to us, it's new to a community like ours, and it's a new approach in our community. And it's important to have somebody that can, help identify what data we need to be tracking, to review that data, to analyze it, to make recommendations on where changes should be made, how to institutionalize it. And I think most importantly, given the success we've had, as Jeff mentioned, how to replicate this in other communities. This is really important to us, but like so many things, we don't want to keep this to ourselves. We want others to be able to utilize the same approach other places. And so we've hired an organization through that grant that is working with us on this program evaluation. And one of their deliverables is a toolkit that we'll be able to share with other communities on how they can start a program like this and find success. And, we've had our challenges and we've worked through some difficult situations that we didn't see coming, but to us, that's all part of the process of making this possible for other communities as well.
Yes. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the successes. We've said it before, and I'll say it again, we weren't quite expecting the warm embrace from law enforcement that we have received. But the deputies in the field and our CARES teams are collaborating on a level that we could only have dreamed of. A lot of our calls for service are coming from the deputies themselves. They'll be responding to a call that doesn't necessarily have a mental health overlay initially. But when they get there, they realize that this is something that's more appropriate for the CARES team. We're able to go over there, take over that call, and they're able to clear and go about doing the other things that we need law enforcement doing. Regularly, the Sheriff's Department is reaching out to consult with us on folks that they have contact with, and to kind of give us a heads up and to collaborate and get some ideas on how the best way is to approach these particular situations. And we're also getting some great information from them, and they've been very welcoming as part of a community-wide effort to make the CARES program well known to everybody on the Mid-Coast. Captain Albin, I've had the pleasure of meeting, and she seems like she is a big advocate for the CARES program, and she's even made it a point to make sure we were aware of events coming up like the Mavericks Festival, so that we could take a part of that side by side with the Sheriff's Department. We've had no problem recruiting mental health professionals for this program. The staff here at El Centro, it's a deep bench. And like I said, when we first came up with the idea of doing this, it was a fight to see who got to be out in the CARES program. So we have a lot of people to pick from there. CBO recruitment, all the other collaborative agencies that we've been working with have been absolutely great. We'll be meeting with Coastside Hope up in El Granada tomorrow morning to do a full briefing on the CARES program with them, as they're now a primary consolidated entry point for homelessness services in that area. And the community support, of course, has just been amazing. But this program has been a success so far. And there hasn't been any case where we thought we've gone down the wrong road. There have been some stumbling blocks. The process with public safety communication and getting them to dispatch just us on calls that we haven't gone to before, as opposed to dispatching deputies unit and us. It's kind of, it's difficult for them to wrap their head around that. And there are some systems and procedures and flow charts that have been in place for decades, designed to protect the county from liability. And these are processes that are taking a while to navigate around and change. Now, the San Mateo County Behavioral Health Commission has put forth some recommendations to the Board of Supervisors that fall in line with what some other agencies across the nation are doing, primarily like Phoenix, where there's a clinician in the dispatch center who helps determine whether that call will go to a civilian response team or a co-response team. Adding that fourth option of a mental health when the call is answered, instead of just fire, medical, and police, we want that fourth option added so the public calling 911 has an idea that this is an option available to them. And on the flip side of that, we're also gearing a lot of our marketing material, our brochures, our fidget spinners and stickers that we give to the kids. We're putting the 988 number on there because we really want to promote that line for mental health related calls. I think that's it. Any questions?
Vice Mayor.
Yes, I do not have a question. I just have a comment. And this program, which we are all so proud of and so happy with, would not have been as successful as it has been without each of the individual CARES team members. You have got a group of folks who are fabulous, and you know their individual abilities are what make it work. And I think that that's true with most organizations. When you're talking about large organizations, especially when you're talking about two organizations, the police and the CARES team working together, we've got wonderful deputies, we've got wonderful CARES members, and it's the people that are making it work. So I just want to shout out to all of the employees and to you, of course, Jeff, for your leadership and your smarts and knowing how to do this. so successfully. So thank you. I am thrilled.
You're too kind. Thank you, Deborah.
Councilmember Brownstone.
Yeah, I wanted to echo the Vice Mayor's comments, Jeff, and believe me, we're not that kind. We are extremely proud of the work that you and your team are doing out there. And, you know, it is a model program, and that's why you're getting a lot of folks interested from around the state and probably the country. And, you know, something you said that I was thinking about, and you said how, you know, you've been surprised or appreciate how supportive the deputy sheriffs have been. And I imagine a lot of the reason they're supportive is they really appreciate the extra element that you bring in to a situation. Because typically, you know, they're having to be, you know, reactive to situations that they, you know, try to de-escalate. And by bringing in mental health workers, you're not only helping de-escalate a situation, but you're also bringing in a very proactive element, because mental health workers, you know, they're there, they're identifying situations and offering suggestions and help on how to, you know, help ameliorate what caused the issue in the first place and providing resources. So it's a much more, you know, long-term solution by having folks being able to be there and help folks who might not typically have those resources. And, you know, Lord knows we're under more stress these days than ever. So I think having your team and those mental health resources there really adds a proactive element that the sheriffs greatly appreciate. So, so thanks for making it work. I really appreciate some of those incremental systemic issues that, you know, you're noticing and able to resolve either based on, you know, systems that have been in place before we had this kind of CARES type resources available, and how sometimes, yeah, we have to, you know, rework some of those pre-existing systems to adapt. So having that adaptive quality that both you and your team are exemplary at, again, greatly appreciated, and really looking forward to keeping those resources flowing so you can do everything you need to do out there. So thanks again, appreciate it.
Thank you so much. You know, it's funny, one of the comments that we receive frequently when we do our follow-up visits, because it's never just show up at the time, cool things down, settle things down, and then, you know, it's all good, so we're leaving now. We go back the next day and we make sure they were able to connect to the agencies that we recommended. Do they need help dialing the phone? Do they need us to give them a ride over to the BHRS offices on the coast side so that we can get them in the door and get them connected? And the folks that have been visited frequently by law enforcement, frequent flyers, we call them, now are seeing a different element. They're seeing us, and then they're seeing us reach out to them the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that, until we get that connection done. So it is adding an element to public safety and public service that hasn't been there before. And that's no slight on law enforcement. That's no slight on the sheriff's department. They have limited resources. They don't have the time to be following up on every call they go to. Fortunately, we do. So thank you.
Councilmember Rarback.
I want to echo the rest of my colleagues' praise for what you've been doing. You're doing God's work, and I really think that it's a step toward our community health. Do you anticipate that 988 is going to dominate the number of calls, or what's your feeling about that?
You know, I'm really not sure. There is a massive nationwide campaign to really get that information out there. And it's a big part of not just the discussion on a countywide level or on a state level, but on a national level. That being said, 211 is a telephone number that's been around for decades, and not too many people know what 211 is. And that is basically to connect you to county services, whether that be housing or CalFresh or any number of different services that are available. But I'm seeing a different type of campaign, public awareness campaign with 988. And I think at this point, with the feeling that the nation has about wanting something different for mental health response, I think 988 could take off. I really do think it could. Time will tell. I'm hopeful that it will, because it's the right people answering the phone, sending that information to the right people to respond to it, that has access to law enforcement if we need it. So
I hope you're right.
Councilmember Jimenez.
Well, I was one of the ones that made one of those calls. Walking around, community, I saw someone, that needed help. And I made a call to the CARES, so one of the members of the CARES program, and gave him the location of the person, and they responded right away. So that was, that is something that we need. The CARES program is something we've been needing. The other thing that brought us a smile to my face is to see the picture of the CARES program team and the deputies. I remember when we first brought this idea, when this first came to the city, some people were not very convinced, of a program like this would work in our community. And now now you're showing different. It is a program that is actually working for our community. It's something that is evolving in something positive for our community. And the other thing that actually I like about your team is the fact that their training, their education, their experience, is actually nothing related to law enforcement. So they respond as a community member, as somebody from the community. I see them when they interact, in the community, especially making Main Street on Thursdays. I usually stop by and say hello to the team who's there. And that's one of the things that actually, I'm very impressed, how, the CARES team, how I see them as members of the community that are here to serve members of our community, and that, I think that's the success of a program like this. Like I said, their experience, the training, everything. So great success, in my opinion, and looking forward to hearing more from you and, more great success, and to be able to bring this program, not just to the coast, but, to the whole county. So I want to, thank you for your great work.
Thank you, sir. We have been having extensive conversations with Christina Corpus, our inbound sheriff, and she is eager to see what other spots within San Mateo County that this program will work. So, yay.
So there's really little I can add here, but I do want to echo my fellow council members' appraisal of the CARES team. I've been very impressed with every single member, and it's like, it's not a job for you all, it's a mission.
Yes.
And it's a love. And, the energy and the love just shines right through. It's really something to behold. And I don't know how you replicate that piece of it. Certainly replicating programs might be easier than actually finding the individuals, have the sense of mission that you do. So you need to find a way to actually, transfer that, to others who might want to do this. That's a tougher thing to do because a lot of it boils down to the individual, but you guys are just awesome. But the other thing that has really struck me about the success here is the element of partnership. The success also involved, the city in the form of Matt Chittister. The council too had a great role, but Matt also has that sense of mission about this. And so the two of you working together, and the speed with which you, brought the program together says a lot about the two of you as individuals, right? So the personal element was really strong, but the partnership element, the idea that we can work together on what is a really tough problem, right? It takes a village, not just to educate a child, but to bring health to the community, because health is, multidimensional. So you need, public safety, and you need committed public servants like, Matthew and the council, and you need healthcare professionals and nonprofits who do the work after you do your work. So I've just been so impressed with the partnership as it involved that, laid the foundation for you to do your work. And I hope we can bring that sense of partnership and mission to everything else we do too, right? I mean, it bodes well for us. It's a bellwether. So I'm very excited about it. I'm very excited about you. I'm very excited about the partnerships, and just see this as, one of the best things we've ever done. So thank you for all you do. Congratulations. And, hopefully we can make it 24/7 and get you the money you need to, continue to be effective and to, help the community. So lots of love there. Let's move forward.
Thank you so much.
Madam
Matthew is
Mayor,
an
I have
amazing partner.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it. And yes, everything we've heard tonight is true. El Centro and Jeff were the right people at the right time. This was meant to be. And I think it was summed up well. It is about the people, the staff at El Centro. All they want to do is take care of the community, and they leap at every opportunity. We call them our Swiss Army knives because they'll do anything that is asked of them, and that just endears them to the community and law enforcement. And it's been so well received. It makes me wonder why we haven't and others haven't been doing this all along. But we're moving forward. So I have a few more slides to share. Just there is a little business to take care of tonight. Our original agreement with El Centro that we signed back in January was for an 8-month pilot at 40 hours or 5 days per week. So it started out, I think it was Tuesday through Saturday, kind of a swing shift. And then the data and the calls told us we needed to shift it. And then we've been able to expand it. Originally, it was just the city limits of Half Moon Bay. The county allowed us to operate in Moonridge as well, just given the history there. And all of that was done on a meager budget of $150,000. 50% of that came from the city as a seed, and 50% was a match from Supervisor Don Horsley and the county of San Mateo. What we're proposing tonight is to amend the agreement to extend it to a full 16-month term. So that's March of 2022 through the end of this fiscal year, June 30th, 2023. As of September 1st, it's an 80-hour-a-week, 7-day per week service. As Jeff mentioned, we have 2 teams that operate 4 10s, so 10 hours a day, 4 days a week. So we only have 1 team at a time, except on Wednesdays we have some overlap, which provides opportunities for training and meetings, and if there was additional crisis support needed, they could respond. With the support of the sheriff's office and the consent of the county, they're now operating throughout the entire coast side from Montero to Moonridge, and further if requested by the sheriff and supported by the sheriff. For the 16-month term with all of these changes, which have already taken place, The budget is $500,087. I want to talk about where that funding is coming from in our plans for the future. So as I mentioned, this started with a $75,000 seed fund in last year's budget from the City Council. Another $75,000 of County Measure K sales tax funds that were secured by Supervisor Horsley. I'll also, as a side note, mention he graciously provided another $30,000 recently so that CARES could purchase a new vehicle. They started operating with an existing minivan that they had, and it looked good for the ribbon cutting, and it did them okay for the first couple of weeks, but it was not as reliable as you would want for this kind of a program. And so now they have a beautiful new SUV to use as their primary vehicle, and the van's a secondary vehicle and a backup. And just grateful for the support of Supervisor Horsley in the county. Late last year, we were notified that we were receiving a grant from the State Department of Healthcare Services in the amount of $180,000 to expand and continue this program beyond that initial pilot phase. And we're part of a cohort of dozens of agencies in California that are working on programs like this. It's been really interesting. We're light years ahead of everybody else. We were the first to launch, and we're actually, I think in 2 weeks, there's a learning collaborative with all the different agencies, and we're going to be leading part of that because of our experience and the fact that we're already operating the program. So it's just a testament, as has been said, to the work we've been doing. Additionally, in this year's fiscal year budget, the council graciously found another $170,000 to provide to the program. And what that did is it allowed us to just get ourselves to the end of this fiscal year. And so we'll be operating 7 days a week, 80 hours per week with these two teams through the end of June. And now my job shifts to figuring out how we fund this going forward. It's one thing to fund a pilot with some one-time funds. It's a whole nother bear to figure out how to keep it operating into the future, because I think the community expects this. I think the value has already been shown, and now we have to find that funding. And there's some good opportunities. The state has AB 118, which was signed into law a couple of years ago, which will fund grants, multi-year grants to support programs like this starting in January of 2023. We have a local representative on their steering committee, and we're very, very hopeful that we'll be a recipient of that funding, which will help us carry this forward. I think we'll be looking to the county to provide some additional support, and looking into other philanthropic and funding agencies to keep this moving forward with some sort of local match from the city. I think ultimately we want to see this expand to be a countywide program that's available to every city, every jurisdiction within the county, and something where we all the cities in the county share that cost and take advantage of those economies of scale. I also mentioned the $25,000 grant we got from Kaiser Permanente. That specifically went into a contract with a third-party program evaluator, and we're grateful to them for that support. So our recommendation tonight is to adopt a resolution authorizing myself to execute a First Amendment to our agreement with El Centro de Libertad for the CARES Community Responder Program at a cost not to exceed $500,087 for a term beginning March 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
I think we do have some public comment.
Mayor Reddick, you're muted, but I will call on our first speaker, Dan Haggerty.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say to Jeff, I think we have the right man in leadership. Yeah, this is Dan Haggerty, El Granada. I'm on the Mid-Coast Community Council, but I'm speaking for myself tonight. And that is, I wanted to say that I fully support 100% the general concept of your program. And I'm so happy to hear real positive stories from the initiation of the program. And I pretty much echo all of the Half Moon Bay City Council members that have spoken on here. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Next speaker is Carol. Carol, if you could unmute yourself.
I agree this type of program should be in every community, and it sounds like you have put in an excellent design. The one thing that I wonder about is how you're getting this phone number out to people so that they can call it, because I haven't heard about this phone number myself. I don't need it yet. Thank you very much. But I know of some people that could have used it rather than calling 911. So how are you getting the information out to the community?
The 988 number is part of a national initiative. You're seeing it broadcasted on television, on radio, across social media, especially various different community-based organizations and behavioral health and recovery services here in San Mateo County. You know, I'm even hearing it on ball game broadcasts across the country. So, you know, 988 being associated with an alternative to 911 for mental health calls. It's a process that they just started this year. We're hearing more about it. It's going to take a minute for that to become kind of the go-to. Like I said, we hand out like stickers and fidget spinners for kids at these different events that we table and showcase the CARES program. And all of those now have the 988 number. Need help, call 988. And it's going to be a movement, really, to get that information out there. And it's going to take some time.
I see.
Yeah.
I live in Kenyatta Cove. Will you be covering Kenyatta Cove as well?
Yes, ma'am. We'll be there. You need us? Call 988. We'll be there.
If I sent out an email to the people here in this group and tell them about it, that wouldn't be a problem for you then?
Not at all.
Carol,
Okay,
we would be happy to set up a community meeting at Kenyatta Cove and bring the CARES team down and meet folks and introduce them. I don't remember if the CARES team made it down to Kenyatta Cove for National Night Out, but we know that Kenyatta Cove comes out for community events, and we'd be happy to hold something special for you down there.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have anything to do with that, but we do have a program. I would imagine you know about it, a community program that handles disasters, setting up for disasters. Are you well aware of that?
The CERT program, yes. Yes, we are.
Yeah, I'm sure they would be happy to have that brought up at one of the meetings and have you present a program. So if you know the contact, I'm sure they'd be thrilled to have you speak.
We do. Thank you very much, Carol.
Okay, great. Thank you very much too, as well. Thank you for doing this program. I'm thrilled about it because I've heard about situations where the police were called out and doing their job the way they know how to do it, and it just was a disaster because of the way the mental health person that was having a disaster, you know, things were just not handled well. So this is the real answer to the problems that people were having. So thank you very much for doing this. It's the answer, the real answer. So thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you, Carol.
I do know that KHMB Radio is very interested in doing a report on 988 as well as the CARES program. So you'll probably be hearing from them.
And we'll add some additional information to our website and our homepage and e-news and make sure that we're doing our part to get it out there more as well.
Great.
So we do have a motion by Vice Mayor Penrose for the staff recommendation.
Do we have a second yet?
Not yet.
Second.
Okay, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez?
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Penrose,
Absolutely, yes.
Mayor Reddick.
Yes, thank you.
Motion carries.
All right. We're moving on to item 3B, which is Smithfield Park amendments to CIP program and fiscal year 2022-23 capital budget and approval of the professional services agreements contract for planning and design.
This is my least favorite time of all.
John, do you want me to pull up your presentation?
Please, it is on. It is right there on the city council
I have
folder there. I thought I had it there and I didn't. And there's no way to practice this. I
move that we make it a regular practice.
I love
your slides up for
that's a tough act to follow. It's amazing what's been done over the last year. So hopefully this will be entertaining, at least for you. Did you find it, Matthew?
I did. And oh goodness. John, we're gonna have to work on this because I can't share my screen with the format that it's in.
Okay. I'm going to be in remedial Zoom and share training, I know, so I apologize.
Hey, it's okay. Remember, we were told at the last meeting to stop doing PowerPoints.
I was in honor of Mr. Olam, maybe I could just do it without it and honor his request, but
consider it a pilot program.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. So, as you're aware, we on August 3rd came to the City Council and you accepted the filing basically of the master facilities plan for Smithfield Park. And as part of that, there were several recommendations that included coming back to you to move forward with filing, getting the materials together to file for a coastal development permit. And just from the basics, Smithfield was developed well before the Coastal Act was envisioned. And as such, there has never been actually a coastal development permit for the Smithfield Park. And this has created some challenges and issues along the road for just minor changes, fixes, repairs of fairly significant issues, sometimes with Little League, sometimes with other users and stakeholders. And so part of this was also trying to clean up that issue with getting a coastal development permit and having some flexibility. Next slide, please. So tonight, we're just requesting a series of actions, pretty detailed in there, and I'm not going to go into those, but to put it as succinctly as possible, we're asking for CIP amendments, capital budget amendments, which ultimately lead to the allocation of park development funds, and then for authorization of 4 distinct professional services agreements to get us to the point of roughly 35% design, which is adequate to proceed with coastal development permit activity. Next, please. Again, don't want to belabor this point, but you saw on August 3rd, the master facilities plan. Again, this came forward for a number of reasons. One, it was recommended as part of the adopted city parks master plan. In that the city parks master plan did not adequately address all the details, and nor did the parks facilities master plan, but it's leading down to a little bit finer context to the planning for maybe the future of that park or maybe not. This was also intended to allow the community to dream a bit. We really kind of have this park in this location, and it's existed. It's been used well, but we don't have a community park, and I think this was an opportunity for the community to identify some of the things that they would like to see in that area. And so that's what the process was. This, we were in part responding to a donor interest in improving part of that facility, namely the parking and access, and getting better ADA and accessibility is always beneficial. Getting better stormwater control and treatment is a bonus and a benefit. And finally, this effort was really sort of looking at and establishing a maximum kind of potential footprint for Smithfield Park. Next. So as we mentioned prior, and just wanted to say this because it kind of always seems to happen that we do extensive community engagement, and sometimes we get to the end of a process, which is not the end of any process, but just the beginning. And it seems as if some folks have missed the community engagement process. And we want to say this. One, we think we did a very thorough job, but obviously there's opportunities, and we will continue to look at community engagement as a critical piece moving forward as well. So this community engagement was a piece related to the master planning. Now we have a community engagement that will be engaging in the CDP and environmental process if the council agrees tonight to move forward with that. Next. So I don't have to go through this. You can just see for yourself what exists out there, and we'll go to the next, please. And clearly one of the things that we've been seeing and hearing all throughout the process and more recently is issues about environmental concerns, environmental protection. And what we can agree on clearly is that this site is heavily impacted by and constrained by existing environmental conditions and by our own local coastal program requirements for buffering. And basically what you see in there is the sort of the blue shading is all the areas that are just that are part of buffer areas in essence, and constrained by various things. So next. So again, to lead to some of the actions tonight is the Parks and Recreation Commission recommended, and this was included in the August 3rd acceptance of this plan by the City Council. I would note that nothing in the plan, nothing in anything that we're talking about tonight is locking in on any form of field surfaces or improvements. And I can get a little more into detail on the next couple of slides with that, because we have just seen a tremendous amount of flow of information and sometimes misinformed information, I would say, about this. Clearly, in the master plan, it says that there's the possibility of certain types of surfaces, but that was not dictated nor anticipated. So next. So this was, I think, part of this conversation was again back to looking at sort of the worst case scenario in terms of cost factors and estimating. And so some of these did assume certain types of surfaces, which gave us basically our maximum kind of cost estimates out there, just again for purposes of planning and understanding of the community, of how expensive building a community park is and can be, and also just to look at where we look at for grant funds and things of that nature. And again, the donor is interested in what we consider and call there the gold kind of initial phase is what the donor has indicated an interest in funding up to 50% of that. Next. And just a quick note here, there's been, I've seen some information going out there that talks about mentions 8 acres of additional area development. Basically what we are looking at for additional development beyond the current footprint is the yellow area, which is just a little over an acre, a little over 45,000 square feet of land. And in that is basically passive recreation, dog park, a potential dog park, allowing for small and large dog potentially. Again, none of this is written in stone. Nature trail, as well as picnic areas. One of the things that came up in all of our outreach efforts was the dog park, trying to get differentiation between those areas and improving the size and quality of the experience. And also a desire for picnic and barbecue areas for families, particularly who I think are living in extremely crowded conditions and needing a place to go and dealing with that when you're looking at double, tripled up in units. There just isn't a lot of space and need for this area. So that's what the expanded area is shown in the master plan, and I think it's important. And I think the key to that in the staff report, we mentioned it, but about 60% of Smithfield area that's owned by the city and controlled by the city is left undeveloped and in basically coastal prairie. And this yellow area is about an acre and a quarter less than what we believe is available to us. We were looking at a lesser footprint impact out there, in part to protect the trees that exist out there and some of the other aspects of that. So this plan also looked at a little less intense than what a theoretical maximum footprint could have been. Next. So again, the recommendations are in your staff report. These are a condensed version of those, and I'm not going to pretend that you can't read these, so I won't say anything more other than to say that these are recommended to move this forward. And again, our intention is to proceed to this point to allow us to get to roughly 30% DD, 35% civil design, and to move forward with environmental review. And I will mention that, as was mentioned in the staff report, at this point, we're looking at doing and conducting an initial study, a detailed initial study. Our belief at this point is that the project will, in essence, self-mitigate in part because it really is a programmatic-based coastal development permit. And so we believe it will, to a great extent, self-mitigate, or mitigations can be attached to it. But if the initial study should identify significant, unavoidable, non-mitigatable impacts, then we will have to transition into the idea of an EIR, an environmental impact report. That's part of the CEQA process, but at this point, we are proceeding in a different manner, and then we'll react as accordingly. And again, this is being looked at from a programmatic perspective, and we're trying to get an overall coastal development permit on the property. And what we've also indicated throughout this process is that any decision-making that comes on any of the subsequent phasing or portions of phases or any of the development would be subject to separate process, separate entitlement process, separate community outreach, and would require the ultimate approval of both the Parks and Rec Commission and the City Council, or a future City Council, as that may be. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Good presentation.
Once we got there.
Yeah, nice photos too. Shall we take a public comment first? Or would you like to ask questions? Okay, let's go ahead with public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Our first speaker is Julia Raposa.
First, I'd like to commend the council for the work that they're doing on mental health, and I'd like to see them be the same exemplary model for the nation and for the world when it comes to the environment. As far as the taking of acreage, I think it's inappropriate to compartmentalize and say that we're just taking acreage here at Smithfield when across the highway in the same habitat, in the same hunting grounds, you're taking an additional 7.5 acres. When the potential taking is 2.5 plus 7.5, you have a risk of up to 10 acres of lost hunting grounds for the raptors. So that is a disconnect. I also wish that instead of saying there was a dispute about surface areas, that you would be courageous and say what you actually had proposed was 13 acres of synthetic turf. That's very concerning. I would like to see us be a model and emulate have perhaps the sister city program with someplace like Costa Rica or Bhutan or both, so that we could be a model for ecotourism. And the Smithfield plans involves moving the dog parks closer to the highway where escaped dogs could be run over. The current plans place the small dog park beside the lone grove of trees where a parliament of owls and red-tailed hawks roost. The small dog park would replace the hunting ground where the raptors eat voles and give them small dogs to eat. If the city proposes they only wish to take 2.5 acres at Smithfield and really 7.5 acres at the Hyatt, the total vole and mole pocked hunting ground lost is between 7.5 and 10 acres when you consider how human activity will disrupt this. Separating the properties into distinct environmental impact reports distorts and misrepresents the true loss of hunting grounds and disruption to wildlife. It is important to note that these are the same ecosystems and the loss of food to the birds is significant. The biologist in the EIR noted that it was difficult to fully assess the plant life on the Hyatt site as it was recently mowed just before it was studied. The city has proposed permanent flushing toilets. This is at a time when the state is proposing the Delta Conveyance Project, rerouting the entire river from Northern California to Southern California. Low flush toilets are required and get plugged up daily at the public library where they've been installed. Placing the sewer line in a seismically active field where wells stopped flowing in a 1989 earthquake would create the eventuality that sewage will contaminate the wells and groundwater that is to feed the new Rancho San Benito. Composting toilets require no sewer line. They don't get plugged up. Properly maintained, they don't smell. A recent Bay Area fish kill was attributed to nitrates, likely from toilets, and sewage causing an algal bloom that suffocated the fish. Sewage lines are not climate-wise. In spite of no evidence of public support and the high cost of the future toxic waste disposal of synthetic turf, the city intends to pursue a costly environmental impact report on synthetic turf. This is at a time when the NFL is circulating a petition to ban synthetic turf, and numerous communities have already banned synthetic turf. This is a time when we must be innovative and climate-wise. Bay Area Green Tours offers custom tours that include athletic fields that are low in water with native plants and grasses that are weed-free. We should be pursuing a sister cities program with Bhutan and Costa Rica to learn how to promote ecotourism and protect the environment. The environmental impact report for the Hyatt fails to assess the economic impact on the community by creating businesses that predominantly create low-wage jobs. The Hyatt employees will either contribute to climate change with their vehicle miles traveled, as they won't be able to afford to live in the community with a housing shortage, or they'll be forced to live in an overcrowded housing situation. Let's see, let's skip ahead to about the Smithfield.
Julia, Julia, you need to wrap it up. You're over.
I am. It's not the indifference that will harm Bay, nor inaction. It is inappropriate or misguided development that will lead to our climate devastation. Agriculture, tourism, and fisheries all depend on the weather. Failure to limit our carbon footprint by covering land with impermeable turf or creating long commutes will have catastrophic outcomes. So please consider also the development plan as it is too close to the the only roost for birds on the field. Thank you very much for your time.
Our next speaker is Matt Warren. Matt, you're not coming through clearly.
Oh, now, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Hi, good evening, council. And thank you so much for this opportunity. And thank you, John, for that really informative presentation. My comment is also about the some concerns I have about the master plan, the Smithfield master plan. And I'm going to preempt my comments by just letting you know, I understand that it is, the purpose is to indicate a maximum footprint, and that the artificial surfaces that are proposed for the multi-purpose field, may have not have been dictated or anticipated, but they are in the plan. And, as long as they're on the table, I'm going to have to comment. Because similar to Julia's comment, I have very serious concerns about synthetic turf. And one thing about the plan is that it doesn't include an alternative for a natural surface. So I think it would be very helpful to also include an alternative for a natural surface. And also in the cost estimate, please understand that the lifespan of synthetic plastic turf is only 8 to 10 years, at which point it has to be ripped out, sent to the landfill because it's not recyclable. And it would have to be sent to Ox Mountain right around the time when Ox Mountain's being closed. So it'd have to be even transported out of the county to be disposed of. And that's on a 10-year cycle. So those costs also have to be considered. And at each stage in its lifespan, plastic turf is the worst possible choice for human health and the environment. And I encourage you all to educate yourselves on the issue. There's a great website, healthyplayingsurfaces.org. It's from the Econ School of Medicine at Mount Sinai Children's Environmental Health Center. And they detail some of the health and climate effects. Not all, but most of the health and climate issues are well documented on healthyplayingsurfaces.org. So it could be a helpful place to get more information. And the main concerns with human health are that the abrasion of plastic turf releases microplastics and microfibers that can be inhaled by the athletes. And so it introduces a new ingestion pathway for microplastics and plastic-derived chemicals, including PFAS, that have been clearly shown to be detrimental to human health, including disruption of the healthy growth and development of hormone and reproductive systems of adolescents. So those are the same athletes that would be out there using the fields. And that also the inhalation of harmful chemicals from the volatilization and off-gassing of plastic turf is also concerning. And then there's also the issues of toxic runoff. So we know that healthy living soils will hydrologically be healthy for the wetlands. Water infiltrating through healthy soils is essentially filtered. And so it would be a healthy way to recharge the wetlands versus having polluted stormwater runoff coming from the plastic turf and going straight into the wetlands, introducing microplastics and other chemicals. So those are just some of the issues that I'm concerned about with the plastic turf. And I understand that it's an early stage of the master planning. Other future stages, there will be opportunities to comment and educate and engage the community. So I do look forward to those as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Dan Haggerty.
Yes, thank you, City Council members. Dan Haggerty, El Granada. I just wanted to say that I do have a big concern with the concept of the synthetic turf used at this project. Essentially, you will be killing the natural the soil underneath. With all of the new awareness of the dangers of plastics in our environment, and all the problems that there's certain plastics that are I guess more difficult to get out of our society, but overall there's a real danger with plastics in our environment. So yeah, I'm taking a strong position against any synthetic plastic turf in this area. Essentially you're killing all the soil underneath. I've heard from someone up in San Francisco that there's a new concern about bacteria living. When you don't have the natural soil process to deal with certain bacterias, then the bacteria thrives more than it would if there was a natural environment. I'm very late with the information on this whole project, but essentially I understand that there's going to be a big synthetic turf installed, and I'm very much against that. I think that there's a lot of problems. I understand that in San Francisco, there's been a lot of concerns. I think the powers of the city has maybe overwhelmed some of these concerns, and they've just call it the powers that be, the industry that wants to doesn't want to have any blowback. Static cling. I don't think we have the heat problem. I know that that's an issue in some areas where the turf gets so hot. But I would really recommend that you, the city council, do not approve a synthetic turf in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Next speaker is Brianna.
Hello, good evening. I was hoping that, okay, you can hear me. So,
yes, go ahead.
My name's Brianna. I am a parent of children who play at Smithfield. I am a dog owner. I am a walker of that area. John, thank you so much for your presentation. I had concerns initially, but I was very grateful that Matthew and some other of the city members met with us and let us know that it is a back and forth conversation, and they worked out any concerns we had. And I love the plans. And I know that if there's anything significant, especially to our children's health, that will be acknowledged. But turf is something that many of our kids play on and is better for them to play on. Smithfield is kind of a disaster out back, and it's actually dangerous with the amount of holes and the lack of care that is out there by the city. So I just want to thank everyone who's taken the time to create the new Smithfield plans. And as someone who regularly uses it and will continue to use it in the future, I am all in favor of it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brian Jackson.
Hi, my name is Brian Jackson. I'm a former member of the Little League Board and another local baseball organization in the area, the Half Moon Bay Pirates. I was president for several years. I currently have 3 kids involved with local sports. I've been at multiple meetings on this subject, and I appreciate all the efforts the city has made in opening this up to the general community. Particularly John and Matthew have taken the time to really, go through all of our concerns, and not just our concerns, but everybody else. But just so we're all clear, at this point, there is no confirmed plans for turf at this time, correct? Okay, so thank you. So with regards to turf, now that that's out of the way, I do have 3 sons who play on turf, and I have no concerns with them playing on turf. I appreciate everyone's opinions, but I feel it's largely theoretical and not with any personal experience. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, my oldest son played on turf in Santa Clara in 103-degree weather. And yes, it was hot. And yes, he had to work through it, but he's safe and he's fine, and he'll manage to get through it. Just like all the other parents that are probably on this call right now, whose kids play over at Cunha, and they play soccer, all the time on turf. So with that being said, I just want to make sure that, whatever plans are finally adopted through this, that the focus of what goes on in these fields is for the kids, and the way that it's been and the way that it should be. There is not a lot of recreational opportunities out here compared to other communities in the area for the kids. And Smithfield is a big part of kids growing up in this area. So I'd like to keep it as much focus on these children as possible. And I certainly understand everyone's concerns about safety of turf and, whatever else the case may be. But as a parent, I can tell you, having 3 sons, I do not have these concerns. And I think most of the parents would, say that as well. And then finally, I just want to clarify. So what we're going through now, is this basically the authorization for the initial phase, which is just paving the lots, or what are we, like, if we could just clarify for everybody here, what is this approving? What are we doing right now?
Mayor, how do you want to respond to that? Okay. Thank you, Brian, and community members. What this would do is to allow us to move one step closer to being able to formalize an agreement with the donor, meaning that we would have a permit, an entitlement for the park itself. And we would also be much closer, much further along in the civil design for the initial phase, which is the parking and the access. So this is the next step in the process toward that end.
Okay, so as a parent, I just want to thank you all for your time in this, and I fully support this. I'd like to see this move forward. And, again, this is not an easy job, and I totally respect what you guys are doing, having to listen to everyone's, opinions on this subject matter. But again, from my perspective as a parent, this is totally about the kids and every other kid in Half Moon Bay and the surrounding community. So again, thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you, Brian. Next is Anthony Sprati.
Hi, my name is Anthony Sprati. I coach baseball. I coach AYSO. And one of the big things, at least on the AYSO side, is they have 800 participants. Trying to fit 800 participants on that field, along with the club soccer, is nearly impossible. You've got kids playing on almost in 30-foot by 30-foot boxes just to get their practices in, and just kind of seeing the plans to possibly allow a soccer field so that we could start to allow more kids to play soccer would be great. On the baseball side, based off of what we're talking about today, I hope it gets approved because it's the first step towards figuring anything else out. Whether it turns out turf or grass until the parking lot is in a place where it's a consistent drainage, no one really wants to take a look at Smith. So, whether it's, you talk to turf people or lawn people, until we figure out the drainage and get it, in a spot where we can make an appropriate decision, it doesn't matter. No one wants to touch it. So hopefully we can get this approved, and thank you all for your time. And thanks, John and Matt, for all your hard work. And thank you, council members, for dealing with all of us.
Thank you, Anthony. Next speaker is Anne Green.
Hi, everyone. As everyone's kind of echoed here, thanks so much for your time tonight. I am also the parent of 2 kids who use these fields on a very regular basis. And separately, I actually sit on a wetlands conservation board. So I'm looking at this from both perspectives. For anyone concerned about safety and plastics, it's kind of all theoretical right now. And for my children, I have no concerns there. I have more concerns about them playing on fields with drainage issues, with huge potholes. If you've ever been out there, I think the fields are very unsafe right now, and it would be great to have improved areas for our kids. I also want to point out, I do think it's important to remember they're not talking about putting turf over the entire area. Nothing is set in stone, and it's all kind of theoretical and to be determined at a future date. And I think it's most important that we have facilities that are usable for our kids in the future. And so taking this first step forward to approve just the funding for this initial step to pave these parking lots, get more access on the coast for kids who really don't have a lot of options is huge. And, thanks to all the work that's been put in already, but I am fully in support of updating these fields, updating the area, and approving the first kind of initial phase here to fund the project.
Thank you, Anne. No other public speakers, Mayor.
Okay, I'll bring it back to the council for questions for staff. Anybody have questions? Joaquin.
Thank you. Just one of the questions that came up early from, I believe it was from Julia. Have we looked into any other options of the surface of the area, or just the turf?
If I could, I again want to clarify. We contemplated the potential for artificial surface equally to every other potential surface that exists. If you take the dog park, they're working off of chips today, basically wood chips. We've seen them dirt, we've seen them turf, we've seen them artificial turf. So when you talk the dog park, none of those were eliminated from the options, the list, and they will all be considered and contemplated as we move forward and as any actually detailed planning goes forth with the dog park. It was initially put out there for, again, I'm not trying to make light of that. It was discussed as one of the options, and but it is not the only option, never was considered the only option. It was really shown as the option which provided, in essence, the most cost-based phasing point there with that deal. Again, to give an idea of what that would cost, anything less, anything different than that will be a less cost than the artificial surface. And we understand that anything that we do will require replacement, repair, maintenance over time. That is a factor that we have to look at and evaluate in any of the choices we make.
How about maintenance and cleanup of the dog park?
Again, in terms of operations, this is going to have to be something as we look at, if we do look at a future. I mean, we look at this master plan as potentially a 30-year plan. If we'd love to see it built sooner than that, I think most people would, regardless. Take the issue of the surfaces out. I think most people in the community would love to see it built before that, but this was looking at a very long-term proposition. As with anything, when we look at building something new, we need to look at what it takes to repair, replace, and manage it. And certainly one of the reasons that artificial surface for the dog park itself, at least initially, was desirable from a maintenance perspective was its limited maintenance out there, particularly in a wet environment that we know exists. But that issue is not a done deal in any way, shape, or form, and we're open and we will continue to look at all options.
Thank you.
You're on mute, Mayor.
Sorry. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, John, for the presentation. My understanding is that decisions like turf or no turf or artificial or wood chips are decisions which we will not be making for quite a while. And in light of that, there may be advances in technology which will make safer surfaces. We don't know that yet. We're nowhere near that point. But I'm very pleased that we're going to be able to go forward and get started on it. I think it's great that we have made a plan which includes the most expensive types of options so that we don't get fooled about cost as time goes on. I think looking at the largest footprint is a good idea. We can always reduce it. But I do think that we've got to get started, and I'm really pleased that we have this donor who's been so, generous to offer us the funds to allow us to get started on it. So I'm all for the project.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Who's next? Robert.
I echo all the comments of the Vice Mayor. I think, we're going to have a Smith Field. There's no one on this council who thinks it's a bad idea to have an excellent facility for recreation. It's really part of taking care of the community's health and safety to have recreation areas for our kids and for adults. And we don't have a lot of spaces to do that. So I like that we'll be working on addressing the flooding issues. I like the fact that this is a very sequenced plan. I think we will probably get more donations coming in as people see what we're accomplishing there. And I think staff has done a very thoughtful, John and staff have put, forth a very thoughtful process as we move forward. But I think having a great outdoor recreational facility is really essential to the community. So I appreciate all the good work that's being done, and I think there are a lot of options, and we're open to everything. But I have a lot of faith that as a community we always tend to do the right things. So I believe that's the path we're on. So looking forward to continuing. Thanks.
Joaquin.
Yes, I just want to be very clear that I'm actually in favor of Smithfield. I know it's something that we need for our community, for our children, but I also have to think about consequences of of the future type of surface that we're going to be using, especially with a lot of the things that Julia mentioned. So yes, but I'm in favor. To be able to offer extra parks for communities, places for community members could gather and barbecue and picnic and play sports, not only baseball, softball, but also volleyball. I saw some of them maybe might have some volleyball courts. So I'm all for it, for the children and for the adults. We all need a place to we can gather and be safe and play and enjoy. But also, keep in mind about how our environment could be the consequences to the environment. The first phase of the drainage, it's I think we're ready for that, and I'm on support of it for now.
Thank you, Joaquin. Harvey, do you have comments?
A few. It's been a travesty that Smithfield hasn't had any environmental review up to now. And I think this plan is very clear that it will have a CDP granted, and it'll be clear that we will not trash the environment in order to have a community park. So I'm all in favor of what's been presented tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Harvey. So I do share a couple of the commenters' concerns about the play surface. I'm glad to hear that there will be an opportunity down the road to evaluate and compare surface treatments. It is an environmentally sensitive area. but it's been there like forever. So I first moved to Half Moon Bay in 1980 and lived over on Colonel Way, looking over the Brussels sprouts field in the Johnston house. If I stood in front of my place and looked west, there was Smith Field, and that was in 1980, and it had already been there, for years. So then I moved away for a while, moved back to Half Moon Bay, had children who used the fields. Smith Fields is a fixture, and one of the reasons is there are not any good alternative locations for those activities. So, we're finally, after, maybe 50 years or so, on the verge of coming up with a plan to improve it, to make it more useful for more people, to make it, safer in terms of the parking area. There will be some environmental benefits, including, lighting that's directed downward and, away from the surrounding habitat, which is really important, at night. So there's going to be some real opportunities to make, some significant environmental improvements, as well as improve, the games area. So I'm going to support moving forward tonight. I think it's long past due. And that's not to say, we're not going to continue to look for ways to serve, other interests like soccer. We still have the hard work of working with the school district, joint use of fields. I'd like us to go there. But we want to support healthy recreation. That's definitely part of a healthy platform. And I think there's the commitment to make it work, and to make it work well, not just for people, but the environment too. So I want to thank staff and thank the anonymous, donor, and the citizens who took a lot of time during the formal engagement process to weigh in, to show up and pay attention. So I'd like us to move forward and would entertain a motion. Maybe we want to put the recommendation back on the screen so someone could make a motion. It's kind of complicated.
I would recommend probably going off of your staff report as the presentation actually has a condensed version of it. It does not have the full. If you want the full verbatim, then you need to go to the staff report for that. So
let me get up there. Okay. All right. So somebody's put it up there. Can you see it?
Yes, I move that we amend the capital improvement program fiscal year 2022-23 to fiscal year 2026-2027 CIP by adding a new project entitled Smithfield Improvement Project as a funded programmed project for fiscal year 2022-23. And by adding the Wave Crest Water Main Project as a funded program project for fiscal year 2022-23. Also amending the fiscal year 2022-23 capital budget by allocating $190,000 for parkland development fees, Fund 125, to the Smithfield Improvement Project to complete 30% concept design level assessment in support of consideration of a coastal development permit. And by allocating $50,000 from the Parkland Development Fees, Fund 125, to the Wave Crest Water Main Project to complete 90% civil engineering design in support of issuance of a coastal development permit. Also, authorizing the city manager to execute amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement with Bates and Associates in the amount of $35,420 for architectural support, 30%, necessary to file and pursue a coastal development permit for the Smithfield Park Improvement Project. Also authorize the city manager to execute amendment number 1 to the professional services agreement with Fryer and Loretta Incorporated in the amount of $68,590 for 35% civil engineering and cost estimating needed to file and pursue a coastal development permit for the Smithfield Park Improvement Project. Also authorize the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Fryer and Loretta Incorporated in the amount of $49,800 for 90% civil engineering design, BID documents, and cost estimates, bid documents, and cost estimates for the Wave Crest Water Main Project, and authorizing the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with SWCA Environmental Consultants in the amount of $81,900 to complete environmental studies, initial study, and anticipated mitigated negative declaration pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act for a consolidated coastal development project permit, which includes both the Smithfield Improvement Project and Wave Crest Water Main Project.
Phenomenal.
Oh.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Could I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Brownstone? Councilmember Jimenez?
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Penrose?
Could people please mute themselves? I'm hearing a lot of background. Yes to the motion.
Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you, team. All right. Item 3C, appointment to Parks and Recreation Commission. This is an appointment, nomination to be made by Councilmember Brownstone.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy. First of all, I'd like to thank the prior Commissioner, Pat Black, and thank her again for her service. And I would like to nominate as replacement for Pat Black, who's left the commission, RJ Jennings. RJ is for those who don't know, RJ, he's a terrific, I think he's a terrific candidate for Parks and Recs. He's a dad. He has a very, he's very thoughtful and has a, I think he adds great perspectives and viewpoints to most of the conversations I've shared with him. He's a social justice activist. He's a dad. He's an executive coach. And he's also a member, an active member of Coastside Family Taking Action. So I think, you know, having him on the commission, also, you know, as a member of Coastside Family Taking Action, he'll give voice to a lot of families up and down the coast who are part of that organization and bring in, I'm sure, a lot of their perspectives on how we develop our parks and how they can be used to benefit everyone. So I think he'll bring in an extra rich perspective onto the commission. So I don't think RJ is with us today, but yeah, I'd like to move forward with that nomination.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brownstone?
Yes.
Councilmember Jimenez?
Yes.
Councilmember Rohrbach?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Penrose?
Yes.
And Mayor Reddick?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Welcome, RJ.
I'll just note for the record, I don't believe there was any hands raised on that item. So there is no need to take public comment.
Thanks, Catherine.
Do we have any commission or committee updates?
Madam Mayor, we will have updates at our next meeting. We have a rec commission meeting next Wednesday night and a planning commission next Tuesday night. So we'll bring reports to your next council meeting.
Thank you. Do we have any city council reports?
Yes.
Go for it.
Last week, Half Moon Bay, actually in Moorridge, there was El Grito. El Grito celebration is the call for Mexican Independence Day anniversary celebration. I was invited by the SAO program of the coast. And I want to share with you that I was very pleased with what I saw. When I arrived at the location, I saw a deputy and the community service officer playing soccer with the kids at Moorridge, rather than in the parking lot. A lot of the families from Moorridge, came to the celebration. There was also a large group of, it was a good group of deputies who were present. The engagement of the deputies with the community members in Moorridge, it's something that I wanted to see. It was a positive event. I was honored to be invited to make the call, El Grito, for the celebration. And I think we need to do this every year. Just when it comes to community engagement and celebration, right now we have the proclamation of the Hispanic Heritage Month. We had it for several years now. And I know some of the other communities in the peninsula have a beautiful celebration. South San Francisco being one of them, Redwood City another one. So it's just something I would like to look into about having this celebration for the whole community. But I was very pleased and honored to be in Moorridge, for this celebration.
I think that's a good idea about looking ahead to next year. Let's get that on the list. Could you do that Grito call for us now?
I would be happy to do that for you. So, you know, El Grito, it's something that Mexico's president goes out on September 15th in the evening, and goes out and calls for the Mexican, citizens. That goes like this, Mexicanos. Viva Miguel Hidalgo y Costilla. Viva Vicente Guerrero. Viva José Ortiz de Domínguez. Viva la democracia. So he goes on to doing this. I added a few more things. Viva la educación de nuestros hijos. Viva la prosperidad y la oportunidad de la comunidad de Half Moon Bay. Viva los campesinos. And then he goes, Viva México. Viva México. Viva México. So that is the call, El Grito, that it's done every September 15th.
Very, very cool. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Vice Mayor.
Yes, I attended the library JPA meeting. I'm on the board there, and we received their budget. But we had a very interesting discussion at the end of the meeting about the fact that the library, San Mateo County Library System, is doing very well financially. They're very stable. And that over the years, they've become more than just a library. Our libraries are now community centers. And since they are in such good financial shape, there is money in the reserves, and the board will get to participate in a discussion in what we do with that money. So I'm very interested in seeing what some ideas are and how to expand and build on what we've become. It's great that we're community centers, but there's so much more that we can do. So I'm excited about that. I also attended the San Mateo County Emergency Services Council and heard about the county's hazard plan, countywide hazard plan, which is going to be integrating all of the different cities' hazard plan into one overall plan for the county, which will keep us from duplicating efforts and help us to work together cooperatively in case of a disaster. And then I attended the commute.org board meeting and heard some very interesting statistics. Folks are 23% of folks who were formerly pre-COVID commuting are not going back at all. They'll be working from home, 23% of them. 27% are back 3 days a week, mostly Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, as you might imagine. 26% are back to 5 days a week. And the interesting thing about these statistics is that commute.org, among others, believe that these statistics are the ones that are going to hold sway in the future. Things are not going to change very much. This is what we've got, and this is what we're going to have. So it's interesting from a perspective of trying to service folks who are not commuting, who live in our communities, and also traffic conditions that have changed and maybe even improved somewhat. So that was what I got from that meeting.
Very interesting. As for the library, I would say more books would be good.
Yeah.
More bookshelves, more books. I don't want to lose the book mission.
No, I don't either. But I do think that you know what they've done with maker spaces, what they've done with giving out food to the needy, the hungry, how they take care of kids after school and before their parents get back from work. All of those things are really changes in the way libraries have operated in the past and are good changes as far as I'm concerned. So
they all support more learning and better learning too.
Yes. Yes, they gave us a report on the Big Lift program, which is a wonderful thing to improve reading for students in the summer months when they generally lose a month or two of what they've learned during the school year. They, in the Big Lift program, they actually have gained 1.5 to 2 months. Mm-hmm. So they're doing good work.
Great. Harvey.
I attended the City County Association of Governments meeting. We heard a presentation about how 40% of the county's greenhouse gas emissions are due to transportation. And so the state is working very hard to make sure that no new highways are built, which is going to go a long way to help that. The state is going to reduce the requirements on the number of vehicle miles traveled per person, that we're going to try to have shorter commutes. Having heard all of that, we then heard a presentation about the Highway 101 Express Lanes project, which is encouraging people to use Highway 101 to have, in some cases, carpools, but you won't have to be in a carpool if you're willing to pay extra for your fast track. So it's kind of a funny juxtaposition of goals versus reality, and I was amused by that. I also attended the Mid-Coast Community Council meeting, And one of the items that was very contentious and important is the discussion about Cypress Point, the 71 unit affordable housing project in Moss Beach that MidPenn is proposing. And the council is going to be writing a letter about a lot of their concerns about traffic, safety, the potential for contamination of the environment, a whole bunch of things. And that certainly would affect the whole coast side, that project. So stay tuned for finding out what happens there. That's my report.
Yeah, so just a comment about the 101 Express Lanes project. I agree. You know, at the same time they were started talking about mode change. You know, it's like, but we have to do this huge project. You know, for commuters. Of course, it was pre-COVID, and of course they're finding out now because of the information that the vice mayor presented on the decline of commuting, that the financial assumptions that were made for the Express Lanes project, of course, have now dramatically changed. And, you know, they're going to have a come to Jesus moment about how to figure out, you know, how to pay for it. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
So thank you for attending the CCAG meeting. I have nothing to report. My CCAG committee meetings haven't been happening. I do have a county bike and pedestrian advisory committee meeting tomorrow evening, so I'll have something to report next time. And the climate change committee hasn't met, but it's going to meet for the first time tomorrow as well. So stay tuned. Anybody else have anything to report? I noticed that our city council reports and future items have been separated. So thank you for that. Now it's clear where everything is. Any future items? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I will adjourn this meeting. Oh, Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Vice Mayor, you're on mute.
Sorry. Sometime in the next couple of months, I'd like us to take a look at our electrification codes and revisit our decisions specifically about the issue of additions being built and not being built as electric additions. So I'm looking forward to that. I think staff and I talked about it, and we're talking about maybe doing that in November sometime.
I will second that.
Mayor Reddish, we do have a hand raised. If you'd like to take it.
Sure, go ahead.
Julia Raposa.
I just had a question. Is the climate change meeting open to the public? And if so, how do we find the Zoom link?
What climate change meeting?
I heard you say something about a climate change thing meeting tomorrow.
Oh, so the City and County Association of Governments has a variety of different sort of subcommittees. So one of the ones that I'm on is the Resource Management and Climate Change Committee. And it meets from 3 to 5 once a month. Sometimes we skip because there's not a lot on the agenda, but there will be a meeting tomorrow. So you want to go to the website for the San Mateo County City and County Association of Governments webpage. And then on the left side, there'll be a tab for the various committees. And you can find that committee there and click on it, and you can see the agenda for tomorrow's meeting.
Thank you. San Mateo City and Counties.
San Mateo County City and County Association of Governments.
Okay.
Julia, if you send me an email, I can help you find the agenda.
I only have Matthew's email. Maybe I can send him an email and he can send it to you.
We'll
Yes,
get
perfect.
it to you. We'll get it to you tonight. Thanks,
Thank
Julia.
you. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you for that. This meeting's adjourned. Have a good rest of your evening.